I have to tell you that the first slide here, this title slide, originally somehow in cyberspace between last night and half an hour ago, the slide changed. It originally said killer chemical among us, glyphosate. But
is that the L is the only one?
That's it. So now it's L glyphosate. So let's go on the next slide. This is how glyphosate is used. I mean, it has been used as a chelating agent, herbicide, and an antimicrobial, patented at different times because Monsanto is trying to milk it for every bloody dollar they can get out of it. And you know, with each of these, there's been increasing usage of it. So more and more glyphosate gets in the environment as this goes on. So, as a chelating agent, back in 1964, this is patented by Alfalfa Chemical, and Alfalfa Chemical sold it to Monsanto. So the issue here is that as a chelating agent, this was originally invented. Now think about this. This was originally invented to take scaled, minerals off of boilers and steam pipes and so on. That's what it's originally invented for. So in the process, it chelates minerals. It chelates magnesium, manganese, copper, cobalt, zinc, and so on. That means it binds with them and takes them out of circulation, if you will. So that happens in the boilers, it happens in plants, it happens in us. And when you deprive us and plants of minerals, there are problems. So this is just to show, for example, you can see here we have, like this is the control in each case, the green, and then this is what happens when you have the glyphosate. And this is in root uptake and then also in the plants themselves. And you can see the greatly diminished uptake of these nutrients when you have glyphosate in the world there. So it's similar in serum levels of mineral deficiencies in humans. So it causes many problems, and we'll talk about that. So as an herbicide, it kills plants by disrupting the Shikimate pathway. Okay, the Shikimate pathway we're not going to talk about it in detail, but the thing is, Monsanto has always said glyphosate is safe for humans because we don't have the Shikimate pathway. No, we don't per se, but our gut microbiome does. All those organisms that live in our gut depend on the Shikimate pathway for lots of things, that whether it's nutrition or whether it's fighting pathogens or whatever, it's all there. So this is to underscore, I know it's a little detail, but it's to underscore that whole microbiome bit, and that is that so glyphosate interferes with the bacterial production of essential aromatic amino acids. And when it does that, you have to remember amino acids are the basic structural part of proteins. So proteins are crucial to all the biological processes that occur in our bodies. So you screw with it there, and now enzymes, transport mechanisms, and so on are all messed up. And just as a reminder, the 20 amino acids that are in everything, I mean, it's all the same. All life operates on the same 20 amino acids. So the last patent was in 2010 as a parasitic control for various, and they also proposed it for various diseases and antibiotics such as malaria. Now, then a study was done in 2013 to show that, I think the study was done in chickens. They showed that it kills beneficial gut bacteria in chickens. Well, if it kills the beneficial gut bacteria in chickens, it's killing it in us. So it's just, it's like insanity layered upon insanity layered upon insanity. So another issue is antibiotic resistance. So you think here, here you have, like, this is a bunch of normal, say, bacteria, and then there's that one little guy there that's a little bit resistant to antibiotics. And then what happens is, after a while, you get a lot more of them, and then with chronic exposure, this is supposed to be a different color than this, but it looks like pretty much the same. After chronic exposure, you have antibiotic resistance, and this can happen with any number of microbes in our gut, or any gut pathogens, for example, can become antibiotic resistant. So Another problem with glyphosate, creating antibiotic resistance, because remember, glyphosate, as you'll see, you're consuming it every day in conventional foods, and even a little bit in organic foods. I mean, organic foods should be what we eat, but you're getting it all the time.
Are you saying it's a lot up? How do we get it on organic food?
No, he said you don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Oh, you do. But it's just a contaminant. I mean, it's a mild contaminant.
From elsewhere.
Yeah, we can talk more about that. So what is this beast? Well, it has this chemical number. For those of you who are aware, the Chemical Abstract Service has a registration number for everything. Even water has a CAS number. But so it's the primary ingredient in glyphosate herbicide. We're talking something made by Dow or Zeneca or Monsanto. It doesn't matter. And then in 2015, this research has been going on for a long time, saying glyphosate is bad, glyphosate is bad, glyphosate is bad. Except the EPA says no, it's good, it's good, it's good, because Monsanto says it's good, it's good, it's good. So in 2015, the cancer branch of the WHO said, oh no, it's a probable carcinogen, which means it is a carcinogen. They say probable carcinogen because probable means it didn't show up as a carcinogen in every bloody test, but it's a carcinogen. There's lots of research to support that. So, as a broad spectrum herbicide, it's formulated for home use, agricultural use, forestry use, aquatic use. In aquatic use, they use it like in clam beds to get rid of the foliage so that it's easier to get to the clams. So, it doesn't stay there. They use it and it's going all over in whatever body of water they're treating. So
presumably it affects the clams as well, which we're eating.
Oh yes, of course. It's going into the clams too. Thanks for pointing that out. But so it kills nearly all plant life it comes in contact with. It is the most widely used herbicide in the world. It's used everywhere in the world. There are probably 200 or so manufacturers now that the patents have run out for Monsanto. And its residues are found everywhere. It's in your food, in your water, in your air, breast milk, in your children, your pets, other animals. It's in sterile cotton gauze. It's in tampons. It's in, and the question is, and I'm asking this of my delegate of scientists that are going to Washington with me, we're wondering, nobody's tested cotton clothing yet. It has to be in cotton clothing. So coming back to the sterile gauze, think of it this way. Say you have skin cancer, okay, and they excise the skin cancer, right? Now they put their ointment on, whatever, and then they put sterile gauze on. So if you've got rid of skin cancer, now you're putting a carcinogenic laced gauze pad. This is beyond words. I mean, I'm sorry. Okay, this is the ingredients. We're not going to talk about the ingredients, but except the fact that if it's a glyphosate-based herbicide, a GBH, coming back to that, it's going to have some salt of glyphosate, some related organic acids. It's going to have a surfactant. Surfactants help spread the chemical onto the surface of the foliage. So you spread it out on the leaves. And then you have penetrants to help it get into the leaves even more. You have emulsifiers to make all this work together. Then you have dyes and so on. And it's interesting because some of the surfactants, for example, themselves are carcinogenic and cause liver damage and brain damage and lung damage. So you have a carcinogen, pumping a carcinogen, kill weeds and us and everything else. You have to remember, this is very insidious. It's a very slow process how this poisoning occurs. We'll talk more about it in a second. So, and you'll see with all the conditions, you can see it's just like trying to link up something as a carcinogen. It's very hard to link up what caused it and the medical condition. So as an herbicide, it's used for weed killing. It's used to treat glyphosate-resistant crops or Roundup-ready crops, and it's also used in pre-harvest. Somebody mentioned this earlier to me, and of course, it's important use.
So you might want to make that clear. I mean,
yeah, I think you should.
There's the huge increase in the use of Roundup is because of those Roundup-resistant, genetically modified.
You got it.
Yeah. You
got it. And if we looked at a curve to show how glyphosate has been used over time, so in 1974 it's introduced and you got a low curve. In 1996, when must have been the last slide, or maybe it's the next slide. when Roundup Ready crops were invented, there's a blip in the usage.
Yeah.
And then when they started using it as a desiccant, as a pre-harvest treatment, there's another blip in the usage. I mean, it's incredible. So, okay, I said before, it kills plants by disrupting the Chicken-Monthly pathway used by our gut microbiome. It inhibits certain enzymes that play crucial roles in biological functions. I mean, for example, some of the CYP functions are to detoxify foreign chemicals, whether they're food-borne or environmental-borne, they get into our body. So if you're not detoxifying, they're affecting you as toxins. You know, you're not getting that protection that normally would be there. And this is just a little, I photographed this at, I can't remember. It was either Lowe's, I think it was Lowe's, but the same thing if you go to someplace like
Costco. Home Depot.
Home Depot. No, Costco has just Roundup, I think. But anyway, these are two different companies. They both use glyphosate as the active ingredient. It's what they call the active ingredient. That's the other issue. They talk about active ingredients and inert ingredients. Those inert ingredients, some of them are carcinogenic. They're not inactive. They're just ingredients. It's like the pills you take when they say, this is the active ingredient, these are inactives. You have to look up what those inactives actually do because often they're quite active. So as I said before, the negative impact on the body is very insidious. It manifests slowly over time. You get inflammation that damages cellular systems throughout the body. It's that bad. I'll keep telling you about how bad it is. You can't believe how bad it is. Okay, also with trees, it's interesting around trees. I just came across this a couple days ago that, well, Monsanto's always said it doesn't bioaccumulate. Well, it does. And when you have sublethal glyphosate poisoning around trees, you can basically starve the plants of micronutrients because remember, it's chelating. It's chelating those nutrients, so the tree can't take them up, so now you get damage in trees such as bark cracking and disease susceptibility because the trees aren't quite as healthy as they were without the glyphosate. Okay, so the glyphosate tolerant crops. 1996 we got the soybeans. And then now it includes alfalfa, canola, corn, cotton, sorghum, sugar beets, and wheat is under development. They did do a wheat one some time ago, but farmers rejected it. And so now they're revamping it because they're going to get that out there because wheat is such a big crop. And these little notes at the bottom associated with each of these items is that if it's 1, it's just something for humans. If it's 2, it's humans and animals. If it's 3, it's just for animals. So basically, if you didn't understand this, what happens with these crops, it means that you can treat the crops with glyphosate and the crops won't die but the weeds will. So that it keeps the weeds out of it. It's a convenience factor. There are other ways of keeping weeds out in organic agriculture, regenerative organic agriculture, or biological agriculture, but this is the simple way, the chemical way, the biochem way, the big ag way.
But they can also put 4 times as much chemicals on the plant that would normally die from that amount of chemicals.
Oh yeah, they use a lot more.
Like 4 times as much.
Oh, they treat several times. They don't just treat once.
Yeah, I mean they don't have to just do it before planting. Now they can do it after planting.
Oh yeah, right. So something to remark here is alfalfa is the main source of feed for dairy cows. You know what that means? So the glyphosate is in the alfalfa. The glyphosate is in the milk and the yogurt and everything else that comes out of that cow. And sugar beets account for 20% of all sugar production. And the sugar you get from sugar beets is synonymous with the sugar beet you get from cane sugar. But like I said, it's 20% of production. So a lot of the sugar you're getting these days is Roundup Ready sugar. Well, this talks about corn, and we can just look at the corn part of the graph.
Corn should be yellow.
Which is the red line here. It's just to give you an example of how over time, from the introduction back here in 1996 to now, well, 2012 when this chart was done for this paper, but you can see this rapid rise in the increase of Roundup Ready crops. And that means a rapid rise in the amount of glyphosate put into the environment. And something interesting to note is that from the introduction of glyphosate on corn till now, the EPA has increased the tolerable level by 50 times. The tolerable 50 times. So what was considered originally a safe level, now they're saying the safe level is 50 times greater than that. And the reason to do that, again, it's bureaucratic convenience. Because when they started testing, they keep finding, they said, well, it's at this level. Then they test, oh my God, it's this level. Everything is this level. Oh, we got to increase the safety level. So it's not scientifically based. So now the pre-harvest treatment. So this is on many non-GMO crops. So you can see all these crops that they use it on: wheat, barley, oat, sugarcane, and so on. And grapes for wine and everything else. So when the crops, usually it's up to about 2 weeks before harvest, they spray to knock down the weeds. Well, actually what it does on grains, for example, you spray the grains and the plant says, oh my God, I'm going to die. So it produces more kernels of the grain in a shorter period of time while it's dying and desiccating. Meanwhile, you've killed the green matter so that the combines, the harvester machines that come through the fields, don't get gummed up with green matter. And it's all done for convenience and to kill the plant off so they can get a new crop in a little bit earlier. Of course, a new crop means that you're wiping out the old crop and then you're planting a new crop with all the new chemicals that make it possible to grow in soil that's been killed off by all the pesticides we're using. And a very important point, the bottom line here. You can't wash this stuff. You know how people you say, well, just wash your vegetables off and you'll be safe. This is systemic.
Yeah,
you can't wash it off. It's in the plant. You're eating it.
I can understand to a large extent, frankly, that the government, for many reasons, would ignore stuff. But what about the ag schools? They're supposed to be young scientists there.
It's called bought and sold by
It's all
big
owned
ag.
by the industry.
So a point here is that, okay, they're spraying this stuff, but it moves about. It doesn't just stay there. Evapotranspiration is very important, which is a combination of transpiration. I can just do it from here, I guess. When you think about transpiration, coming off of the trees and the grass, then evaporation coming off the surface of the land, all going up. Combined, you get evapotranspiration, and the amount of evapotranspiration depends on climate and where it goes depends on wind and so on. But it goes up basically into the air, into the atmosphere, and comes back down to us in rain. Isn't that lovely? So what happened over here now is raining over here where they didn't even use the bloody stuff, and you're getting glyphosate wherever you can. Well, there was another important point here, and that is runoff. I wanted to point out runoff because the next slide gives us one example. Well, partially an example of runoff. Because it goes into streams and lakes and contaminates other places. But here we're talking about in Mississippi, where 4.4 million pounds. This is a 2014 study. 4.4 million pounds of glyphosate were applied statewide in Mississippi. Over 75, and then continuing the study, over 75% of the air and rain samples tested positive for glyphosate, and AMPA. AMPA is one of the main metabolic breakdown products of glyphosate, which is also toxic. So. And
then did they check the Mississippi River?
Oh, they've checked. There's a couple other papers about streams checking in the Midwest. So much contamination at different levels.
Dead zones.
Dead zones. Okay. Continuing on with how it moves about, you have spray drift. For example, you can see here, you have a backpack sprayer, you have a roadside. This is probably somebody like Caltrans. Here's somebody in their backyard. Here, over here is a plane. So this guy up here, if you can get drift maybe to a couple 100 feet, depending on wind and so on. However, down here, half a mile. So this is how we get contamination of other places. Whether it's say you live next to in an agricultural community, you live next to these fields and they're treating them. This is how the stuff's getting to you. This is how organic crops are getting contaminated and so on.
How about our children? That they're spraying this in our parks.
Exactly. This is the point. It's all around us, and say to spray a lawn in a park to kill out all the broadleaf weeds, and then your kids come and play on it. Well, Roundup can be picked up if it's recently sprayed, well, of course if it's wet, it goes through the dermis. If it's a pet, it gets on their skin, their fur, they lick it off. If it's recently sprayed, it's somewhat dry, it can still be picked up. Somebody mentioned economic. Well, it's the first billion, that's million with a B, right? $billion pesticide. And over 280 million pounds are sprayed on more than 1 billion acres of U.S. crops. That's just agricultural use. We're just talking about agricultural use. The global production in 2012 was almost 1.6 billion pounds, and the market is expected to be 8.79 billion by 2019. So about 45% of that global usage, is for Roundup Ready crops. 45%. So tons of this stuff is going in Roundup Ready crops into our bodies. So you can easily understand that much money involved, that much sales involved, why agribusiness does not want us to control it. Well, we're not out to control it, we're out to ban it.
I was trying to think of the analogy to DDT, because you have the silent spring out there. This is way worse than DDT.
It goes beyond DDT. We actually fondly call, my group that's going to Washington, we call ourselves Silent Spring Reboot. So, just for California, just look at California for example. We have over 10 million, this is 2013, the report for 2013 from USDA or Department of Pesticide Regulation. Over 10 million pounds on agricultural crops only. Now, Caltrans uses tons of this along the roadsides, probably the next biggest user. That's not reported here. In home use, home use wasn't reported, but we know in 14% of the homes surveyed in Northern California, somebody had a bottle of Roundup in their homes. Not only are these sheer volumes remarkable, but we also don't know. You have to remember, glyphosate's being sprayed, right? Other pesticides, 2,4-D, dicamba, other herbicides, other pesticides, they're all being sprayed. We don't know how these toxic cocktails affect us. Nobody's done those studies of looking at how it affects us. Even the studies of glyphosate are wrong, which I'll mention how that's wrong later. A major point here is that whether it's Roundup or any glyphosate-based herbicide or other pesticides too, and all these toxic mixtures, we're all unwittingly exposed to them. We don't know we're being exposed to this stuff. When you buy an apple and eat it, unless it's organic, organic you still have a chance of contamination, but you're likely better off with organic. But when you buy something, you have no idea what it's been treated with. And we'll get to some interesting aspects about that. So how do you get exposed? Well, somebody asked about this. There you are. It's everywhere. It's being all the time. This is probably a Caltrans guy on the road. Of course, here you have the wonderful distribution by aircraft. Helicopters even distribute further than some of these fixed wing aircraft. So, we have some rather wide-ranging problems here. Think of gluten intolerance, social injustice, autism, climate control, bees, leaky gut syndrome, and so on. All of these are related. And it basically affects all life forms at the molecular level. That's what I was saying earlier. At the molecular level, this is why it's so bad, and why it's linked to so many disorders and conditions. And it also kills, it also kills or harms in various ways amphibians, fish, rabbits, poultry, cattle, of course the microorganisms in the gut, the microorganisms in the soil. Well, see, again, we're fussing with a multi-million-dollar industry here. The whole gluten-free thing is a big industry. Go in the stores, you'll see it. Now, granted, there are probably definitely cases of celiac disease or gluten intolerance that don't have anything to do with glyphosate.
They make all the gluten-free stuff with corn, so they don't even know it's a GMO product.
Well, it could, yeah, if it's not organic.
Yeah, because corn supposedly doesn't have gluten, but everything.
Oh yeah, right.
All these cupcakes that are gluten-free are made with corn.
Yeah, this is a slide to address that actually, in some ways. So these are hospital discharge rates based on celiac disease. That's the yellow, and then the red line is the use of glyphosate on wheat. So, and this is a 0.97. The correlation coefficient. You get to 1.
That's amazing.
That's a done deal. So these are pretty close.
Wow.
You know, we'll talk more about correlation coefficients. But what happens in celiac disease is that glyphosate preferentially kills a certain species of bacteria, and this lack of that certain species of bacteria is known to be the condition in people with celiac disease. So the linkages are all over the place. So is this the world you want? This is where it is right now. This is crazy. So half of all children have chronic illness or are overweight, and this is the new normal in our country. And if this isn't getting you excited, you're not paying attention. I mean, these are horrible statistics that just should not be. There is no. This is avoidable. What's the point?
What's new?